Great. Welcome, everybody. This is exciting, and it's my honor to call the meeting to order and say that this is a meeting in compliance of the Government and the Sunshine Act. It actually is very much in compliance. I feel like the sunshine is all over us, and we want to do this pretty often. I know that Victor has talked about this, the notion of being open and soliciting more discussion. But before we start, there's one thing I want to say. I'm sort of an amateur historian, and I've been watching from Prague Spring, when Radio Free Europe was starting, to the Arab Spring, the role of the free flow of information in sort of bending the arc of history towards democracy. And what you all have been doing, the amazing things that have been happening in the past year, and the astonishing reporting, whether it's out of Egypt, Libya, or Al-Hurra's great ratings now in Iraq, everything that's been done reminds us of why we're in this business. I know you think perhaps that we're making some changes, we're changing entity heads, trying to rejigger a bit with the structure. Let me assure you that this board and Secretary Clinton, who is a member of this board, met with us yesterday. She was very strong about it. Everybody recognizes the great journalism that's been done, especially in this period. So the changes we hope to make, some of the fiddlings we're doing, is not because we all walked in here and decided this is crazy or this is dysfunctional. We really do deeply respect the journalism that's going on and hope to keep the process better. I want to commend the fellow board members. I think there have been times in the past where the board has not fully gotten along. This is a board very dedicated to your mission. And boy, I watch it all the time in that office and deeply appreciate what's being done. I think I speak for everybody. We have members of the public, I think, joining us. We asked for questions by email, and I'm happy to say there seem to be a whole bunch of them. We'll have questions from the audience. People can raise their hand. I'll kind of alternate. I think if you want to write a question down, there's probably cards for which you to write it. But we're going to do our business portion of the meeting and then open it up to discussion until 11 o'clock. I think that it would be good to do a report card on the agency a little bit. With the help of Judith McHale and everybody else, we have a much better operating relationship with the State Department, especially with the meetings yesterday with both the Secretary of State and various others. I do urge you to realize that we're all partners as we keep the firewall of journalism sacrosanct. We're all partners in a great endeavor of a pretty big struggle in this world, and that's to get the free flow of information and ideas credibly out to people. We've had a busy year. I think, as you know, there have been a few changes. I guess I have to wait for Dennis to announce one of them, but I'll wait to that. But Carlos Garcia has really grabbed the reins at the Office of Cuba Broadcasting. I'd really like to recognize Dick Lobo, who is sitting at the end of the table. Sworn in September. He's coordinated all of broadcasting activities. Brian Conniff, you've done I've been on your shows now too, but you and your crew have done a great job in Springfield, especially given what's happening now. Libby, hi. Libby is the powerhouse and the spark plug here. Everybody knows Libby Liu, Jeff Trimble, and Dan Austin. Great to have you all here. At our meeting with Secretary Clinton, I was somewhat surprised by the passion she showed. I think, Dana, you asked, what regions of the world would you focus on most? We got a tour of the horizon. I think the only place we're not supposed to focus is Canada or something. But she started with Latin America. She cares deeply about both the Maltese and the Latin America. We went through Africa, which you and Susan and Michael are dealing with on the trip, but also how we're doing interactive stuff in Africa. Certainly the Afghan-Pakistan And I think her deep interest and her desire to meet with us shows the importance of what we're doing. For Judith, let me turn to you, if I may,
Sure.
and invite you to share your remarks about both the Secretary of State and the State Department's cooperation with the board.
Thank you, Walter, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you today. I'm very sad to say this will be my last, as some of you may know, this will be my last meeting representing the Secretary on the Board of Governors, since I will be stepping down from my position on July 1st. I have to say it's been a great honor to have the opportunity to work with this organization over the past 2 years, and as Walter said, much change is taking place. We had a great meeting yesterday with Secretary Clinton. It was, I believe, one of the first meetings where the Secretary of State was able to meet with the Board of Governors, and it was a very productive meeting. As Walter has said, I think as we've tried to do over the past 2 years to really strengthen and connect the relationships between our two organizations. I think we all know and acknowledge that the communications landscape has fundamentally transformed in recent years, with people everywhere having access to information in new and extraordinary ways. And so we believe very strongly that close cooperation between the State Department and the Broadcast Board of Governors and all the entities is absolutely essential for all of us if we're to meet our foreign policy goals and objectives and ensure our national security. And so we've been working very closely and collaboratively at all levels in the State Department and across the enterprise here to find new ways that we can collaborate. How can we do that? How can we work better together to sort of achieve our common mission, respecting the fact that obviously we're two independent enterprises. But I believe that there are many, many areas that we can collaborate on in the future, and so many of the changes that are being implemented are going to facilitate that close collaboration, which in this very complicated, interconnected world is probably more important than ever. And so we're going to be very focused on that, and I will obviously, hopefully, a successor for me, they will have named before I leave, but even after that, I plan to spend some time with whoever takes over from me when I go, to talk to them about the work that we've been doing, the foundation that's been laid, and the importance of carrying that work forward into the future. I especially want to thank Walter for his leadership and my fellow board members for all that they've done to really come to terms with some very serious and significant challenges that we face in common. One of the points that Secretary Clinton made yesterday is obviously this is a very difficult and challenging time around the world with the changes. It's an exciting time. There are enormous opportunities, and I think we all have to be, hopefully we'll be well positioned to seize those opportunities. At the same time, I think there's nobody in this room who doesn't understand that we face very serious financial constraints. All of us do for all the reasons we know. And therefore, our ability to work effectively and efficiently together is probably more important than ever. And I think you will find that my colleagues at the State Department are committed and will remain committed to finding new avenues to explore together. And so let me just say I wish you all well as you go forward. And although I may not be a member of the team, note that I'll be cheering for you from the sidelines. Thank you, Walter.
Well, that said, I would like to propose a resolution and read it. And you don't have to vote on it, but everybody else will, and I think it's been drawn up. Whereas Judith McHale has announced plans to conclude her service as the Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy, and where she has ably represented the Secretary of State on the BBG, and not only ably, but amicably and fun, where she's drawn on her experience of management of broadcast networks to provide valuable ideas. Many of you know she ran the Discovery Networks. Where she understands the critical role of international broadcasting in the context of U.S. foreign policy, where she's been faithful in her attendance, active in her participation, and deeply missed by her colleagues for insightful contributions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Broadcasting Board of Governors extends its appreciation to Judith McHale for her role as an active member of the board representing the Secretary of State and wishes her well in her future endeavors. Do I have a motion?
Move its adoption.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No, we love it all. Really, she's spectacular. We're going to really miss you, although, because that has not always been the closest, cheeriest relationships, and you and the Secretary have done a great job doing it. Dennis Mulhop, Governor Mulhop will give both a report on the innovations of board governance, but also an important announcement in his capacity as the chair of our board on Radio Free Europe, which is made up of our board, but we all rotate the chairs.
Thank you, Walter. Is this on? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Walter. As you said, I have two things to do. The first is an announcement. Some of you may know this. The board of directors of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty met about 20 minutes ago and has elected a new president and chief executive officer. Steve Korn, would you please stand up? A press release is out at the moment, but let me just say a couple of words about Steve's experience. We're delighted to have him. He has hit every criterion that we established for this position. Most recently, he has been vice chairman and chief operating officer of CNN and played an integral role in managing all of the non-editorial functions at CNN for several years. Prior to that, he was general counsel and vice president at Turner Broadcasting Systems, basically been with Turner and the CNN family for quite some time, and has a long and a distinguished background as a lawyer, a manager, someone that's very well versed in media, and importantly also was a longtime member of the board of the public broadcasting system, where he had a number of important roles. So we're delighted to have him and welcome Steve, and we all look forward to working with you.
Mr. Chairman, or can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
I'd like to say, having had a long experience with Turner Broadcasting and CNN, one of Steve's jobs, and I'll say this carefully because I think we're being webcast, was also to handle Ted Turner's enthusiasm. And if you ever have to deal with authoritarian regimes in Uzbekistan through the Southwest Asia, there's no better experience in understanding how to deal with Ted Turner. And if I may, Dennis, could I ask Steve if he wants to say a word or two? Is that fine with you?
Absolutely, sure.
Thank you, Dennis. Yeah.
Thank you. Is this on? Is this on?
Yeah.
Oh, no? Can I be heard? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm honored, I'm humbled, and I'm quite excited about this opportunity. It affords me the opportunity to make use of a lifetime of passion about the role of free press in the world, and it presents a challenge which I thrive on. I'm looking forward to it. I know that the people at RFE-RL have a long and tremendous history of achievement, and I think it's something that we can build upon, expand, and honor as we move forward. So I'm very much looking forward to hitting the ground running when I get there, and to serving. I will say that when I first met with Walter, the first thing he said to me was, "You know, it'd be a great thing for the country if you did this." And I laughed and I said, so that's what they say in Washington when they want you to take a job. So, but it worked, and I got sold. And I'm very happy that I did. I'm very, very excited and honored to be working with you, with all of you at the other networks, with folks at BBG. I think there's a lot we can do together to advance the cause of U.S. international broadcasting. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Steve. I think just to also note that Steve and I will be on our way tonight, tomorrow, to Prague, and we'll be meeting with all the staff at RFE in Prague on Monday. And we're looking forward to that opportunity and looking forward to your service. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Governance Committee report. Mr. Chairman, I'm grateful for the opportunity to come to the board meeting today to discuss some of the key themes that the Governance Committee and the board have pursued over the last year in order to improve the governance of the agency, and in doing so, to promote and improve United States international broadcasting. I think it's important to note that all of the work that we're doing here all the work that we're doing in governance and changing the organizational structures and that sort of thing is designed to support the work that all of you, or many of you, do every day, the vitally important work and mission of providing information, free information and news around the world. And that's the purpose of all that we do, and we keep that in mind all the time. When this board assumed office in July of last year, we inherited not only a challenging mission, but also a complex agency structure. The United States International Broadcasting Act of 1994 authorized the elements of U.S. international broadcasting, the board, the BBG staff, the International Broadcasting Bureau, the Voice of America, the Office of Cuban Broadcasting, and the BBG-sponsored grantees, Radio Free Asia, Middle East Broadcasting, and Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, without necessarily specifying how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. On top of that, the board itself is a collective body composed of 9 governors, 8 of whom are part-time. Against this backdrop, over the past year, the board has acted methodically and decisively to improve the governance of the agency in at least 3 ways. First, the board has improved its own operations. The board set up a governance structure in order to leverage the expertise of governors and the many experts in the United States international broadcasting community. The committees that we've established, governance, strategy and budget, and communications and outreach, have allowed the board to play a strategic and policy-oriented role rather than focus on operational issues. The board also adopted the agency's first set of formal bylaws. In addition, the board increased the transparency of its proceedings. Today is an example of this, opening up board meetings to public observation through live webcasting, publishing its decisions, and significant research materials such as the Language Service Review Book on the BBG website, and appointing a Government in the Sunshine Compliance Officer. Second, the board has improved cooperation and collaboration among the elements of U.S. international broadcasting. Early on, the board adopted a set of rules of the road for BBG-sponsored broadcasters, both within the federal agency and among its non-federal grantees. The board clarified its expectation that the elements of U.S. international broadcasting will cooperate in working towards the goals established by the board in a spirit of collegiality, transparency, mutual respect, and good communications with peers and colleagues. Everything we do, I hope, tries to support that overarching goal. The board clearly stated its commitment not to create fiefdoms within the elements of U.S. international broadcasting. Instead, the board has endeavored to govern USIB collectively and as a whole in order to leverage the talents within the board, the agency, and the U.S. international broadcasting community. Third, the board has developed proposals to clarify and streamline agency management structure and authority. The board noted at its last meeting that the agency remains hampered because of the absence of a full-time executive charged with implementing the board's strategic vision and managing international broadcasting on a day-to-day basis. Clearly, this is not something that the board can or should be trying to do. The board took action to give the IBB director, Dick Lobo, the only presidentially appointed Senate-confirmed agency official other than the governors, authority to fulfill this important responsibility. At its last meeting, the board decided to merge the staff functions of the International Broadcasting Bureau and the Broadcasting Board of Governors staffs, and that all of the offices and functions within the BBG staff and the IBB should report to the IBB director. This proposal has been sent to Congress for consideration and concurrence. Earlier this year, the board affirmed the authority of the IBB director to manage key operations of the federal agency. This authority includes key administrative and operational functions, including human resources, procurement, security, and others. The board decided that the VOA and OCB directors, Voice of America and Office of Cuban Broadcasting directors, should report to the director of the IBB with respect to these key day-to-day operational functions, and report to the board only with respect to their respective programming as a protection against firewall concerns. Last month, the board also adopted an enhanced delegation of authority for the IBB director, and giving him the authority to identify, evaluate, and resolve strategic trade-offs and conflicts among the broadcasting entities, consistent with the broad strategic guidelines established by the board and subject to the board's continuing oversight. Finally, I have one piece of substantive business for today's meeting that relates to the topic of the IBB-BBG merger. At our last meeting, we directed the IBB director to develop a staffing plan for the merged IBB-BBG staff. The IBB director convened an organizational design group of senior staff members to consider this question and to propose a new organizational design for the IBB, incorporating the functions formerly undertaken by the BBG staff. The proposed plan was considered by the Governance Committee at its meeting yesterday. I have also provided an overview of the proposal to the governors yesterday. I would like to ask for the board to approve the proposed plan based on the Governance Committee report dated June 2nd, 2011, which has been submitted for your review and consideration. Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of the Governance Committee report.
Yeah, and let me ask one question. Paul, this has been noted enough that it can be voted on at this meeting? Yes. Okay, and so that's been checked out. Okay, I would love to second it if you would, Mr. All in favor, please say.
Well, I had a question. I asked Mr. Colmer. This report, we're actually voting on change in policies, secondly, change in bylaws. Is that correct? I mean, it's a two-part motion?
The motion is to adopt the Governance Committee report.
Well, when we do that, have we in effect amended the bylaws and amended the policies?
Yes, because what we're doing is we are...
I can't hear you.
What the board is doing is adopting the recommendations of the Governance Committee.
And that is something that's approved right now, right?
That's correct. If the board adopts the motion that was just made to adopt the recommendations in the Governance Committee report, then all of those recommendations would be approved.
And my question to you as the legal counsel is, just so there's total clarity, at least for myself, that includes changing numerous housekeeping changes to the bylaws, as well as changes along the lines that Mr. Mohawk pointed out to the policies. Does it also include the 2012 calendar, or is that a separate motion?
Well, the 2012 calendar was part of the Governance Committee report, so it would include that.
Well,
But let me just break this down a little bit. The primary recommendation of the committee was to adopt and approve the organizational changes that reflect the board's April decision to merge the IBB and BBG staffs. The Governance Committee also decided to make conforming changes to previous board decisions that reflected the pre-April 2011 agency structure with a separate BBG staff and a separate IBB staff. So these changes are just in the nature of conforming amendments. So that was, for example, the rules of the road decision that the board made in August of last year has now been conformed to reflect the new merged BBG and IBB staff structures. And in addition, there were certain policies and procedures, like the bylaws, that reflected where conforming amendments have been adopted by the Governance Committee or recommended by the Governance Committee. So if the board adopts those the recommendations of the Governance Committee today, it is also adopting that. There is a subsidiary matter at the end of the Governance Committee report dealing with the proposed dates in 2012 for board meetings. If the board adopts the resolution as it's been proposed by Governor Mulhopt, then that would also be adopted. The board, of course, is free to split that out and consider that as a separate matter if it wishes to do so.
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that the calendar is clearly, in my mind, a separate issue from the bylaw changes, and we simply have two votes, one on the bylaw changes policy, and I call for division of the question.
That's fine with me. Let's divide the question if there's no objection. Is there any objection, Paul? Since
I have no objection.
Last time I read Robert's Rules of Order was when I was in high school. All right, we've divided the question. Let me call the vote on the first part of the question.
So this is for the adoption?
For the adoption of the Governance Committee report without the calendar. Right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. It's a carried. And let me call the question of the adoption of the calendar, which we can change if we decide to move October to November or something, right? I mean, we can always change that, right? Our meeting.
Yes, you can.
Well,
the board has can change.
Fine.
I would just suggest maybe the chairman of the Governors Committee outline there are a couple of changes in the calendar for notice to our audience, but also to ourselves as to what you're recommending for 2012, which we're in agreement on.
I'm sorry, you said you wanted an explanation of the calendar of the meeting?
Yeah, sort of the overview of what
Okay.
the calendar changes are.
I believe that the changes are when we came into office, the board met 11 times a year. Now the proposal is the board will meet 8 times a year. This year we suspended the tradition of having a meeting in each of our entity headquarters, so therefore we did not go to Prague as a cost-saving measure. We are reinstating the concept of having a meeting at each of the headquarters. So the board will travel to Prague probably next spring. We will also meet in Miami, and we're also considering a meeting on the West Coast. I believe those are the changes.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we reserve the right to change our minds,
we can
cancel, save money again, whatever. Thank you.
That's the current plan. Anyway.
I've never voted on a calendar before. I can't even figure out what I'm doing next week, and now I feel I've gotten myself locked in. I trust you, Dennis, that you'll say, all right, well,
We'll tell you where you need to be.
thank you. Is that the end of your report?
That concludes my report.
We'll turn it over to Dana, who's got to be a little bit less controversial than you are. Dana Perino serves as the co-chair of our Communications and Outreach Committee, and I think you're going to discuss some of the leadership changes at both at PNN and OCB.
Yes, I will. I have just a few things to go through. I'll try to do them quickly, but I think that each of them are important. The first one being that, as Governor Mulhop discussed, the complexity of our operations and our efforts to make things more efficient. One of those things has included a long-established law, the Smith-Mundt Act, that this board has been on record supporting a repeal of. There are some proposals that have already been introduced in Congress that we have been broadly supportive of, if not necessarily on the specifics, but broadly supportive. We also have drafted legislation that would accomplish this from our point of view, and we are going to continue to discuss this with members of Congress. The reason is because it's a moot law. With technology today, everyone should be able to look at everybody else's news and information. And I think that the competitive advantage that our services bring with the breadth and depth of the coverage and experience that the U.S. International Broadcasting Services provides is important. The law also gives us obstacles in some particular ways. One is that trying to find transmission solutions into difficult-to-reach environments, such as Cuba or Haiti, that do not spill over into the United States. That's not necessarily easy, just given geography. When asked to make language programming available to diaspora populations here in the United States, there are many different ones. You could consider up in Michigan, the Somali population there, the Somali-speaking community. We would like to be able to provide them access to the news that our services are providing. And also when English teachers of English have, as a second language, have asked to use VOA English language materials within the United States, Smith-Mundt actually prevents them from doing that. So we think that this is something that we would like to pursue. I think there is some support for it on the Hill. Of course, change is not easy for anybody, and you have some people raising their hand asking, I guess, thoughtful yet apparently nitpicky questions about how this would get done, but that's what happens in the legislative process, and we are prepared to work with them on that. And we look, if you have ideas on what, why, or how we should do this, we would welcome them to be funneled up to the board. In addition, as Governor Mulhop mentioned, we had changes regarding some leadership, and I would like to also just take a moment to elaborate on something Governor Isaacson said, Chairman Isaacson, about Dick Lobo. He was appointed by the President Obama, and he got his Senate confirmation, as we all did. He is an award-winning journalist. He also has a proven track record of noteworthy success of running, actually managing and operating TV stations in important markets around the country. So we're so glad to have him. The board has entrusted Dick with significant responsibilities, and that is recognizing his important leadership on a number of fronts, including transmission, new media, and human capital management. So all the different types of people that make this organization great, he manages that. Through the IBB Coordinating Committee, Dick is in charge with examining and making recommendations to the board, which he does. It's not that we just meet 8 times a year, we talk every day. Dick Lobo provides us information that's based on the research as to how this board can provide strategic guidance in cost-effective ways, market by market, BBG-wide. And we can't have a discussion about changes in leadership and programming without recognizing his leadership. So thank you, Dick, for all that you're doing. I had a couple of other things to mention that were a little bit more specific, and they have to do with 2 of the areas that we get asked about the most. One is the PNN, Persian News Network, and the leadership changes there. When I first joined the board, I and other governors heard from a lot of people, especially when we were going through Senate confirmation, about the need for PNN to improve its performance in a number of areas. And I think everyone, all of us agreed that that could be done, and it is being done. The board selected Enders Wimbush, Governor Wimbush, who can't be with us today because he's traveling overseas, but he is a seasoned scholar. He is a practitioner of U.S. international broadcasting, having been on your side of this dais before. He has been working on improving the programming. We have new leadership in Ramin Asgard. Is Ramin here?
Yeah, Ramin,
You know,
I
be
saw
able to
that.
maybe stand up and make sure everybody knows you.
Ramin has been great. It's bravo, Ramin. Thank you for being here.
The board charged VOA with looking at a whole comprehensive look at PNN and what could be done. Ramin is a big part of that. And the reason this is so important is because we really are the main way for people living inside the country to get access to free information. And we want that to continue. We want the programming to be compelling, interesting, and effective, and we are moving towards that. I would certainly like to commend PNN for the creation of Parazit, if I'm saying that correctly, Parazit, excuse me, which is getting wonderful press coverage everywhere and being copied in other places. And there's flattery in being copied. So we want to thank all that PNN has done to improve. There's also been leadership and program changes at the Martis. We hear a lot about the Martis, as you can imagine, at this board. It's been wonderful to work with the new director, Carlos Garcia. He has been there since November 2010. He is a great, passionate person about Cuba broadcasting. He wants to improve it and make it much more effective. He has added to the professional staff at OCB. He recruited a general manager with television experience from Telemundo and Univision, and an executive editor and a new web reporter that hailed from the Nuevo Herald. So those 2 people that have joined OCB have really added to the capabilities of the Martis. Also, the Martis is expanding as best it can its reliance on research and what information is actually able to reach the island. How are people in Cuba accessing information? And in fact, a very interesting article went around. Did I bring it? It was in a technology trade magazine about internet access in Cuba, which is limited but growing. It was the magazine article was called "All Things Digital." I'll let people look it up. It was about Cuba. What's interesting is that it's hard to get information as to how people are getting access to the internet. It's not allowed, except for if you are a foreign official or foreign government a visitor, and certain other people within the government are allowed to have it. But for somehow, people are able to get to the internet, and they go to great personal risk and great personal expense to be able to do so. We want to continue to try to help not only reach them through broadcast and television, but to really focus on that internet use and how we can help expand it, and whether that be through mobile telephones or whatever other way that we can. But we also know that the programming has to improve. There's a new website, which I encourage you to look at, and those listening and watching, if you haven't, to be able to go and see it. And the goal is really to enhance the surrogate mission. It remains the same, to help them bring freedom and democracy to their shores. My last piece, I know everyone's probably tired of me talking, is we have sought to improve communications as a board with the Hill as well as the news media that covers the very important jobs that we all do. Not me, but what you do. To enhance these efforts, we have an announcement, and we're delighted that Diane Zeleny, who is a longtime, you probably know her from her days at RFE, she is joining us at the headquarters to serve as Director of Communications and External Relations. We have worked with her and actually followed her lead in a lot of things over the past year, and we look forward to her being able to bring those skills and that creativity and a seemingly tireless energy to what has become even more important in trying to advocate for this agency on Capitol Hill in the time of very tough budget constraints. And so we are excited to have her. She's here in the front row. Maybe she could stand and get around. Finally, Walter, I would just say that the changes that I've talked about, while not a comprehensive list, are highlights of our ongoing mission to provide more transparency, efficiency, and improving our capacity to carry out the mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know you've worked very closely with Susan on new media developments, for which thanks, and I would love to turn it over to Susan to talk about some of that.
Yeah, and before I start, I don't know if this is working, I just want to add that I strongly support the repeal of Smith-Mundt because I really think it would help raise a lot of awareness about what all of you do in U.S. international broadcasting. And I think those of us with strong ties to Capitol Hill are going to work hard at that over the upcoming year.
By the way, the first question on the email, just to show that we're answering the questions, is what are you going to do to make sure that we can get our broadcast to the, especially the diaspora population, speak Somali, Arabic, Russian, just like all the other broadcasters, BBC and Russia and CCTV9 can do. So at
we're
least we've
answering
answered
before
one of
we
the
start.
questions, which is
This is an example
help us
of our
get rid of
efficiency.
Smith-Mundt. Or
So before zeroing in on one delivery platform in a conversation about new media and social networking, I want to make clear that the BBG will explore all options. Is that your phone, Victor?
Yeah.
All options and use any distribution method available where and when appropriate to deliver unbiased news to our target audiences. You'll hear us talk about being platform agnostic a lot. We're charged with being responsible stewards of our public funds, and as such, we will employ platforms within our means based on the media habits of our audiences, market forces such as competition and level of sophistication, and of course, where we have available transmission opportunities. We increasingly see crowded, vibrant, and sophisticated media environments. The sheer number of well-executed television and radio options commanding the attention of consumers becomes clutter that, in fact, serves as a new type of jamming. I think Michael Linton can speak to that as well. So you add to all of this internet and mobile behavior, and you have a consumer that has very different media behavior patterns than his or her Cold War counterpart. In this environment, the BBG takes not one approach, but many, each tailored specifically to target markets and audiences. So I want to take a quick snapshot of a few of our target markets, drawing from independent research. Mobile phone ownership by adults in Haiti is nearly universal. Mobile phone ownership just surpassed 80 million people in Nigeria. Chinese mobile phone ownership is 91%. There are 100 million mobile phone subscribers in Pakistan. 3G service continues to roll out, enabling consumers in emerging markets to leapfrog over other technologies such as fixed computers and internet access. The other macro trend that we see is the adoption of new media is uneven across all of our target countries. And to help us understand that, the BBG has developed a new media index, which is designed to assess the readiness of a given market to consume new media. This index is pointed to the Balkans, the Middle East, some former Soviet republics such as BBG, in some BBG markets, most ready for content for new media. But we also see a macro trend of extremely young demographic breakdowns in Africa, Middle East, parts of Central Asia, and Asia. So to help us meet all these needs, we're making some changes here at the BBG. We're reforming a department, our new media department, and we're bringing on board some new leaders. We call them digital natives, or digi-natives, as I call them. And they're going to work across all the networks with the staff that we have here in developing out new social networking and new media tools to reach new audiences and to grow our audiences. The board believes in enterprise journalism and audience engagement. The board supports the idea of BBG entities shepherding citizen journalism and crowdsourced content. The board strongly encourages collaboration, not just between our services, but also our broadcast networks and third parties. The silos have to come down, and we will explore and experiment with new techniques to report and tell stories, because fundamentally that's what we do. And going forward, we really want to try and work with all of you to bring those silos down, to get your great content out to more and more people in the advancement of our mission. There's one example I want to speak to in this regard, and you probably all are familiar with it by now. We call it the Congo story. It's through VOA, and it's on the web. Hopefully you've had a chance to explore it. The Congo Story project may well be a template for the future of international broadcasting and what it will look like. The Congo Story, it just launched. It's in its early phases of development, and we're repeatedly seeing signs of proof of concept. We have NGO partners who are on board with us on the ground, such as the Eastern Congo Initiative, the Enough Project, Falling Whistles, V-Day, and others. We have more than 640 Facebook friends at this early stage, and we're starting to get traction on search engines. Not only have the NGOs started filing reports, but the viral nature of the project has allowed the Miami high school students to find the Congo Story, and they've contributed to the project. So this is a great opportunity also for Americans to get involved in what we're doing abroad in terms of participating and engaging with the citizen journalism on the ground and NGOs all around the world. And we are affecting the news cycle with this one project that I'm speaking to. About a week after we posted our interview with author Jason Stearns, Anderson Cooper 360 aired essentially the same interview that we did. So they either saw our work or great minds think alike, but it's more proof of concept. And CNN this week reported a piece on Libya using rape as a weapon of war, again, at the center of their story. So this speaks to the larger story that I believe the work of VOA and the BBG really seeded in terms of information and storytelling. VOA just completed a journalistic training mission in Eastern Congo focused on new media reporting and the use of desktop editing tools. These newly trained multimedia journalists will now report on health issues and may contribute to the Congo story as well. So we're also doing training along these lines in terms of new media skills. So I want to speak very briefly about some other efforts. There's a lot of illustrations of how new media and social networking are complementing the traditional radio and TV programming of our networks. And again, I want to be clear that we are platform agnostic, and we have a lot of respect and we recognize the great, great importance of TV and radio. But a couple quick examples here. Many of you are familiar with VOA's satire, and Dana spoke to it as well, Parasite, which now has more than 500,000 Facebook fans. It's really a remarkable story. RFERL Afghan Service has an SMS headline news feed, the first of its kind in the country, with over 280,000 subscribers. And this is since an October 2010 launch. So it's, again, that's incredible growth and really promising for the future. We've launched over 70 BBG language service websites designed for display on mobile devices in the last year, and mobile website visits are now at 750,000 a month, and they're growing. You heard me give a snapshot earlier of mobile technology, excuse me, and I believe that mobile is going to be incredibly key to a lot of what we do in terms of new media and social networking development. The last stat I want to read to you is I think, phenomenal. Web traffic for BBG is averaging 40 million visits a month, and that's a 100% increase over last year. So again, 40 million visits a month, 100% increase over last year. So we want to continue to build on these efforts, and again, to complement our radio and TV distribution and to more fully engage our audiences around the world. It's an exciting time to be in international broadcasting with the United States, and we want to make clear of the board's commitment to aggressively experiment in these spaces to empower citizen journalists and to enrich the news gathering. And lastly, again, I want to reinforce that the idea here is to get past the silo mentality and to gather information in a new way and to back the content on other platforms as we move our mission forward.
Thank you very much. And let me just note, since we did talk about Smith-Mundt a couple times, that Secretary Clinton yesterday said she supported the repeal of Smith-Mundt as well, so we'll do it. You know, one of the joys has been, and since I've been here, is to serve with Dan Austin. Dan Austin is not only a great journalist, but he's also a delightful gentleman and a great colleague. He's one of the longest-serving VOA directors, probably involuntarily, since he told me about 6 months ago, okay, I've been here a while. But starting in 2006, he also ran the IBB because of the inability of government to fill jobs or confirm jobs or whatever it was. He's championed our core journalistic principles, but he's also been an innovative programmer, great technical developments, management skills, good joy, good spirit, an important legacy in engaging audiences, but also engaging his colleagues. So whether it's the multiple media platforms or the traditional ones, Dan's been there. I would like to move, if we may, that we adopt a resolution that is in our board book to commend and celebrate Dan Austin for his great service to Voice of America. Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Bravo. Yeah, you can. Yeah, Dan, come on up, say a word or two, and get the crystal mic. Bravo.
Thank you all very, very much. Thank you all very much. I'll be very brief here, but I actually first entered federal service this month 43 years ago as a private in Lyndon Johnson's army. And then as some of you may know, I took a 36-year-long lunch break, but returned to federal service in October 2006 to what I think is arguably one of the best jobs in American journalism. It really has been a terrific ride, but primarily because of two things. One, the mission here. We all know about the charter and all that good stuff, but I think very succinctly, we are required by law to practice good journalism. And I think that sort of says it all, and that's the reason many of you are here as well, I think. The second part of it to me is the people here who work sometimes under incredibly difficult conditions, who take risks, whose lives are disrupted. In one very sad case during my tenure, who actually made the ultimate sacrifice in the pursuit of truth. Working with people like that, I've got to tell you, is a joy and a real privilege, and I thank you all for that. There's no doubt about it. I think Susan was outlining it very, very well. There's been a lot of progress made here, especially in recent years. The difference between our web traffic when I walked in the door and what it is today, we've had roughly a fourfold increase in monthly traffic. We were in danger, frankly, of becoming what I would consider roadkill on the information superhighway. That is not the case today. We are very much in the fast lane. Our use of social media, as again Susan I think documented so well, is increasing. Our ability to use social media in connection and in combination with our radio and television products to further engage our audiences, not just talk to them, but to have a conversation with them, has increased dramatically. All of that, I think, is a testimony to the will and the spirit of the people here. My colleagues elsewhere in U.S. international broadcasting who have just been tremendous. I mean, Susan talked about bringing down the silos. We've actually made a fair amount of progress. Still more things to be done there, but a fair amount of progress. I also think we've reached out with success to some of our international competitors and colleagues. Again, always in our best interest to do that, when it was in our best interest to do that, but with great effect. My successor, David Enser, I think again is a testimony to how this board regards the Voice of America. To bring in somebody of that stature into this job is really quite something, and a testimony again to how this board and the American people, in fact, regard the efforts of all of you here in this room and watching over the House television. So again, with that, I want to say thank you all very much. It's been a great run, and I appreciate the support. Thank you.
we have Ensor with us, right? There he is. David, welcome. Hey.
Thank you, Walter. Nice to meet you.
It is a great pleasure. It's very hard to succeed in the footsteps of Dan Austin, but we have somebody who's not only as engaging, but also a gentleman like Dan, somebody who I have admired as a journalist for ABC, national security correspondent, also with CNN, also serving in government as our spokesman in Kabul. You couldn't find a better choice. You couldn't find a nicer guy. You couldn't find a more enthusiastic person. David Ensor from Kabul, is that where you are now?
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
Welcome.
My outcue would be David Ensor, Voice of America, Kabul.
Kabul.
Thanks.
Dateline Kabul. Go ahead,
It's a
sir.
great honor to be talking to you over this. It's a little bit discombobulating because of the sound and so forth. But anyway, it is an honor to be joining you very soon at Voice of America and to be serving this energetic, pragmatic, bipartisan board. I can't be more excited than I am about the work ahead. It's really wonderful to be coming back to broadcasting. Much as I have enjoyed working for our country here in Afghanistan, I'm passionate about what we're doing here. I miss broadcasting, and so you were kind enough to offer me a chance to come back, and I really just couldn't resist. I've seen the great work that Voice of America is doing here in Afghanistan, and the close collaboration also between Voice of America and Radio Free Europe, Radio Azadi here in Afghanistan. They use the same facilities. There's a lot of good leveraging there of the same resources in some cases. So I think that may be a model. Obviously, this is a great global brand, Voice of America. It stands for values that I think are appreciated everywhere around the world. We are going to have to keep up with the technological changes, and you all have been talking about that. I look forward to coming in and having a look and seeing where it is and how can I help it continue to move forward. I've seen the power of Voice of America here in Afghanistan, where, as many of you know, actually the primetime evening news on the state channel at 6:30 p.m., in fact, is the Voice of America news program. And I'm happy to inform the board, if you don't know already, that a couple of days ago, I and the folks who came here, the IBB folks working for Dick, were able to prevail on the minister, and we've got another 5-year contract at the same price to broadcast to Afghanistan. So that, I think, is going to be wonderful, a wonderful platform for us to be able to speak to this very, very important audience here, both in Dari and in Pashto. You talk about new media. This country has gone from about 10,000 cell phones 6 years ago to something in the area of 12 to 15 million now. So the cell phone, the mobile phone, is clearly an important platform that we're going to need to address ourselves to here. The only other thing I'd like to say to you is you've got another strong supporter of the repeal of Smith-Mundt coming to join you. And I would just say that if we need to go and ask Congress to do that, you might have some allies in addition to the Secretary in the State Department, because it has been frustrating us, even down at this level, on a weekly basis. Back to you, Walter.
Thank you very much, David. And as we said to Steve Korn, it's a great opportunity to serve your country, and we really do appreciate what you've done in Afghanistan, but now what you're going to be doing to lead Voice of America. Thank you, sir. It'll be great working with you again. Great.
I look forward to it, sir.
Now we're, bravo. I hope some of this shows that even if the board's not that competent, we can find some competent people to come on in, so thank you.
Walter, we spared no expense for that feed, incidentally.
Well, with the Skype? The David Burke Award winners, it's great to honor excellence in journalism, and it's my pleasure to turn it back to Dana. I think you're in charge of this? Yes.
Okay.
Unless you want to put it off till later.
I always get slightly nervous when I step up to a podium because I'm only 5 feet tall, but at least I can see over this one. We are pleased to take time today during this public meeting to present the winners of the David Burke Distinguished Journalism Award. The Burke Award recognizes a select group, those who further our mission by informing and enlightening with originality, as well as impacting the lives of our audience in a meaningful way. The board established the David Burke Distinguished Journalism Award as the highest form of recognition within our agency. It highlights the courage and integrity of BBG journalists. Let me say to our reporters and broadcasters that your hard work and courage inspires not only the board, as you've heard today, but certainly all of our audiences around the world. And I know that from experience when I was White House press secretary. There was a day when I was we were in Baghdad, and President Bush was meeting with Prime Minister Maliki, and in the foyer, two young men came up to me, Iraqi young guys that worked for the government there, and they said, "Excuse me, are you the press secretary? Could I get our picture taken with you? Could we get our picture?" And I said, "Of course, I'm just surprised that you even know who I am." And they said, "Oh, no, ma'am, we watch you every day on the Voice of America." And that's the one piece of advice that I passed on to my successor, Robert Gibbs, and then to Jay Carney when I spoke to him before he took the podium, which is, it's easy to think when you're at the podium and to feel like there's only the 16 reporters that are there in the White House briefing room who are asking you questions and that you have to respond to. But really, it is still the world who looks to find out, what is America thinking? What does the president think? What does the White House think? Will they still support us? Are they on our side? And that platform, it was such a wonderful experience for me, and I'm glad I can continue to participate in our government through the board. David Burke's illustrious career as a news and broadcast executive and public servant exemplified those values that this award celebrates. At ABC News and CBS News, David steadfastly defended the demands of professional journalism and the right of the people to have access to the news against the expediency of short-term commercial gain. As the founding chairman and leader of the BBG for our first 3 years, he imprinted on our collective consciousness the importance of fulfilling our mandates free of any inhibition, hesitancy, or outside control. The award citation reads, "In recognition of your dedication to the advancement of the cause of freedom and democracy through a free exchange of ideas as exhibited by your original work, you have enlightened audiences and had an impact on their lives in a lasting, meaningful way. As such, the board is proud to honor you with this award." The award carries with it recognition in the form of $2,500. And now we'd like to present a short video to explain what our winners did to deserve this recognition. As you will see, these individuals have overcome great obstacles to bring these important stories to BBG listeners and viewers around the world.
Voice of America's Burke Award winner goes to the Creole Service for its coverage of the devastating Haitian earthquake. On January 12, 2010, hours after the disaster, the service's programming surged and the coverage was increased an additional average of 9 hours a day. VOA's news coverage also served as public service journalism.
Some other callers had to say that they were about to be evicted from the property where they stayed right after the quake. That property owner quickly told them he decided to leave them alone because he heard their complaint on Voice of America.
The winner of Radio Free Europe Radio Liberty's Burke Award is the Belarus service for their breaking news and analysis of Belarus's disputed presidential election in December 2010. On radio and the web, including one 24-hour block of live broadcasting, the journalists covered the bloody street protest on the night of the vote and the ensuing government crackdown on political opposition in the media. On the Belarus Service's website, over 100 bulletins of the demonstrations were compiled on one page with photos, videos, and analysis. The YouTube page views increased by 300%. The Burke Award winner from the Office of Cuban Broadcasting goes to Jose Luis Ramos for his dedicated reporting of the funeral of Orlando Zapata Tamayo. On February 23, 2010, in Cuba's Kilo 7 prison, 42-year-old Zapata died after more than 80 days of a hunger strike he started in protest of prison conditions and his beatings by cell guards. Cuban state media did not report the story. It was through Radio Marti that Cubans followed the news. On the day of Zapata's death, Jose arranged live coverage of the funeral via cell phone between Radio Marti and Tamayo's home in Banes. Radio Free Asia's Burke Award winner goes to the Cantonese service for their groundbreaking coverage of a radiation leak in China. In May 2010, there were 4 accidents at China's Shenzhen Diabei nuclear plant, including a radiation leak into its cooling water, which the authorities tried to cover up. Radio Free Asia obtained a document revealing details of the leak. The small Cantonese team broke the news and in one day produced 4 stories on the subject. The story was picked up by major media organizations, including the New York Times and Bloomberg News. The Burke Award winners from the Middle East Broadcasting Network are Al-Hurra's Tariq Al-Shami, Akram Kazam, Muslim Kadil, and Naif Mashkaba for their coverage of the Egyptian Revolution in early 2011. In early February, reporters were harassed and threatened, with groups of thugs threatening to kick journalists out of Egypt. But Al-Hurra's journalists stayed on the job, and for several hours during the evening of February 2nd, Al-Hurra was the only television network broadcasting live from Egypt.
Many thanks to Lisa. I want to
Really
thank them.
reminds us of what we do.
Yeah, and I want to thank Lisa Vora for, is she here? Yeah. Would you please stand? She put together the video, and thank you so much. It was really well done. And now we're going to recognize the winners. Our first award goes to the Voice of America's Creole Service for their unmatched coverage of the devastating Haitian earthquake. If you'd like to come on up. Each of the winners is going to say just a brief word, so we will hear from you, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I want to say that I'll accept this award on behalf of my friends and colleagues in the Creole Service with humbleness, gratitude, and honor. We also want to thank the award committee for this recognition. We would like to extend our thanks also to our agency's leaders who have given us the support that we need to do our job. We want to express our thanks also to our family and everyone we work with, especially our colleagues at VOA's Latin America division. We want to thank our division director, Alberto Mascao, who's here with us, and the managing editor, Clara Dominguez, and for their support. We thank all of them. And last but not least, I would like to say that we certainly hope that the future of VOA's Creole Service will even be more fruitful, more successful than its past. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you and congratulations. Congratulations. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. And to you. Thank you so much, sir. Our next award goes to our Belarus service, and they are joining us. It's a team of 20 journalists and producers, and they're the ones that you saw in the video, provided the instant breaking news and in-depth analysis. They're joining us via video. Do we have them here? It's Alexander Lukashuk? I'm going to turn it over to you to pronounce your name correctly and to be able to say a few words as we congratulate you on your award.
Thank you, Dana. The main virtue of a broadcaster is brevity. This is the first BBG Oscar for the Belarus service. David Burke, our first BBG chairman, as far as I know, serves now as a director of the USS Constitution Museum. And when you look at the website of the museum, it says it offers to see how sailors ate a diet of hardtack and grog and climbed masts 200 feet in the air. This is a pretty good description of what we do here at RFERL, maybe not necessarily in this order. Perhaps our new president will see that our diet is a bit richer. As for climbing the masts of new media, Mr. Kohn, you will have all our support, and please accept our congratulations with this second best job in the world. The first, of course, is in the Belarus service. We got 3 nominations this year for the Burke Award, one from the Belarus authorities, the last dictatorship in Europe, who harassed, beat, broke equipment and jailed our journalists. We also got some editorial advice from the KGB, didn't follow. The second nomination came from our peers who quoted, broadcast and used our videos, photos, reports, CNN, NPR, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Economist, Foreign Policy, Atlantic Monthly, to say nothing of YouTube, Facebook and other Twitters. And the third most important nomination, of course, comes from the audience who came to us when it mattered most and for what mattered most. Accurate, reliable, fast news information and analysis, and also to comment, to discuss, to participate. Radio Free Europe has become really a very and social, political and personal network of freedom for many people in Belarus, so generously supported by the US Congress and the BBG. It is with great humility that we accept this honor today, and governors, with your permission, perhaps it's time for a little grog tonight. And to our captain, Stephen, stay assured we'll take care of the sail as well.
Permission granted. Thank you and congratulations. Our next award goes to Radio Marti journalist Jose Luis Ramos for his dedicated reporting of the funeral of Cuban activist Orlando Zapata Tamayo. I understand that at one point when Tamayo's mother was handed a phone, she cried the words of freedom live over Radio Marti for the rest of Cuba to hear. Please congratulate me and join me in congratulating Jose Luis. I wanted to get to one thing. I believe, is your daughter Gretchen here? We would like to recognize Gretchen for being here as well. If you wanted to come up with your dad, that would be fine.
Good morning. Thank you for the prestigious award. Thank you for the BBG. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think Governor Linton is going to hire Jose to train the actors at the Oscars to do their thank yous. Our next
we are indeed running a bit. I know we want to get to Q&A.
Yes, we are gonna-
We're not trying to keep this going long, but yeah.
Well, I'm not. Our next winner is Radio Free Asia's Cantonese service for outstanding coverage of the radiation leak that you saw in the video. And we have Cantonese director, is it Shiny Breeze, here with us, which that name is a beautiful name. Shiny Breeze is here to accept the award and then say a few words as well.
Thank you. It will be fast. Actually, our whole team should be here, but 10 o'clock is our live broadcast to China, so everyone is working hard now. And actually, I should say this is really a teamwork, and I would like to thank every members of our team, especially some took their risk and to obtain the information and write the story. Because, you know, nuclear plant leakage is a very high confidential information in China. Don't say in Japan right now, the incident. And also, I would like to thank our management support. Whenever we are encountering some difficulties, they will always support us. Thank you very much.
And our final presentation goes to Al Hurra, very well deserved. Tariq Esmami, Akram Kuzam, Muslim Kandil, and Nayef Mashakba. And if I said that correctly, maybe I can celebrate tonight too. Their courageous coverage of the Egyptian revolution in late January and February 2001 was a wonder. And it was fun for me, I follow lots of news reporters. It was fun for me to have to watch them quote Al Hurra. And so they're joining us via video, and we asked them to say a couple of words before we finish here. And it's Tarek. Tarek, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for this celebration, and I'm so grateful. I'm speaking on behalf of my 3 other colleagues, and congratulations, you pronounced them very clearly. And first of all, I want to thank all my colleagues at Al Hurra, and thanks is given also to my management there in MBN, Mr. Danny Nassif and Mr. Brian Conniff. Thanks is given also for the BBG for your support and help during this revolution. Actually, before I came here, I was thinking about this memories that you brought it back to my mind 3 months ago. I remembered how it was difficult, how we were about to be killed sometimes, but thanks God I'm still alive and to be here to attend this ceremony from Washington, D.C. I don't want to be long in this words, but after all, thanks is given for you, for your help and your support, and I give you a special invitation to come to see Egypt after the revolution, how Egypt is changing now. And a part of it actually is because Al Hurra and MBN and BBG was helping to give the Egyptian audience a clear and correct information during these hard days. So please, if you have any chance to see Egypt and come here, please, the invitation is for all of you, the 200 people attending this ceremony. But please don't come in one flight, just make it into different flights. Thank you very much, and we are looking forward to do our best in the coming days to give this celebration the best words that we can.
That concludes our awards, and I think that all of the governors were humbled by the work that you do, and we look forward to getting a chance to see how the journalists of BBG top the winners this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Dana, for that great presentation. We launched last year a year-long strategic review, and I know we want to leave some time for questions, but I would like Michael Linton, if we could, who is on the Budget and Strategy Committee, to describe some of the international media trends that we've been looking at.
You know, I think the one I'd like to point to is the proliferation of television throughout the world. The internet and mobile telephony has captured everyone's attention, and I know that is clearly the newest form of media, and certainly the fastest growing form of media out there at the moment. But the thing that is most stunning to me as I go around the world, and in my day job at Sony Pictures, we operate more than 100 television networks all over the world, everywhere from India through Latin America, all in local language. And what you see now, both with satellite as well as cable distribution, and now more and more IP distribution, is literally thousands and thousands of television channels all throughout the world broadcasting. And the majority of those channels now are of the shows with indigenous content. That means in the past it was only the United States and the larger markets that could afford to export their programs. Given how cheaply production can be done today, that is no longer the case. So in any market you would go to, whether that would be Russia or anywhere in Europe or anywhere in Latin America, anywhere in the Middle East, more than half of what's being broadcast, and I'm now not referring to news for a moment, is actually locally produced, local language production. The other big trend that we see, which has been going on now for almost a decade, is what's sometimes called non-scripted, sometimes loosely called reality television, or what's mistaken for reality television. Partially because it is so cheap to produce, but that's become a very, very big factor in all of this. And alongside of all of that, as you no doubt know, is the proliferation of news channels everywhere in the world. Because now you have this platform of television. In many markets, you have 50, 100, 150 channels, and many of those channels are broadcasting news. In India, where Sony Pictures and others have a large presence, there are at least 20 news channels broadcasting at any one time, not just in Hindi, but in Telugu and Tamil and all the various languages throughout India. And there are many things to observe about that, but I will make one observation, and it speaks to the mission of what you all do here, is that given how many news channels there are out there at the moment, there are those that come forward with true journalism and factual reporting are the ones that stand out, particularly in moments of crisis. And while there is this clutter that Susan described earlier, I think what we have seen of late in the crisis moment, we saw it with Al-Hura in the Middle East, is at those moments when people really want to understand what's going on, they actually turn to very few news channels, and one of those channels, or many of those channels, are the channels that you all are responsible for. And I've seen that now throughout the world, and I think it's something that everybody should be reminded of, because the clutter is the thing that everybody concerns themselves with, but the truth seekers really do, and there are many, really do come to all of your work when they actually want to find out what's going on.
Thank you very much, Michael. Michael's been invaluable on the board, I may add. And Michael Meehan is a couple of hats, but he's going to update us on the strategic review, of which you're the co-chair, but you're also the vice chair of the RFA board, Radio Free Asia board. I think you have a comment there.
Thanks. 11 months ago, when we first got organized as a new board, I wasn't in the room when Walter was handing out assignments, so I got assigned to be the co-chair of the Budget and Strategy Committee. And looking back on the time that you all have spent in going through this process, and I've attended as many of the sessions as possible, I wish I hadn't gone for coffee at that moment. But here we are 11 months later, and I'm very much wiser, and as are my other members of the board, about all the good things that you do. You know, we set out a very ambitious schedule for a part-time board to go through in a year-long strategic review, not only because the Congress requires it, but also a chance to talk about and learn ways to transition from these platforms like Michael and Susan have illuminated earlier. And what we need to do in U.S. international broadcasting to bring the networks that you all work on together, find ways to save money, do more with less, deal with changing technology platforms, yet still keep that high-quality news journalism standard that Michael referred to consistent, because we do represent the United States in 100 countries and 59 languages. So we began the process with some briefings from the National Security and Public Diplomacy in September, where we listened to the long and short range objectives of other agencies that within our government to make sure that we have complementary efforts where appropriate. And then the committee then focused in October on our mission statement, and it was a fascinating process to watch, because Walter's written a thing or two in his life to figure out how to shorten up a few words in about 8 seconds that it would take the rest of us, most of the rest of the year to do. So hopefully we, as we move through we'll soon be coming with a mission statement that sort of reflects the direction that the board wants to go through in the coming weeks and months. Then November, we focused on the global operating environment, where we took a strategic review of the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats to the broadcasting entities, and had the managers who were responsible for that come forward with that context to help inform some of our decision making. In December, we spent time on a distribution and a technology review, where the IBB Coordinating Committee, which many of you participate in, came together to work through things across all of the networks about our distribution strategies, so we can learn more of that. At the beginning of the year, we began the regional reviews. Many of you, we operated in a two-panel process. People would come from the outside. We did outside regional experts that would come and speak with us about what they see on the ground, where they used to work, where they currently work, where they write, where they cover. We had a lot of people who all came for free, which was an amazing thing to me, because some of these people are unbelievable quality and time in such a demand, but they were willing to sit down and spend hours with the board and the senior staff talking through how they see the conditions on the ground, the politics, the media in a given country. And it was just a fascinating, I felt like I was going to grad school 400 for free. You would sit there and listen to some of the world's best experts, sitting upstairs in our building here, go through this, and it was an unbelievable pace. We started with Africa, and then we followed with Latin America in February. Through March and April, we did Eurasia, South Asia, Central Asia, and then we're finishing up with East Asia, the Middle East, and worldwide English in the month of May. So now we're in the sort of the end stage of this process where you've all been asked to come up with the best things that work in your space, the things that you want to do more of, and we've also challenged you to come forward with a way to pay for it under current budgets, because as has been noted, we're in the environment that we're in, that we're planning to have our budgets, the looming threat that they're looking for $5 trillion. So our little agency here would probably be one of them that are on the table. But that being said, there's a great willingness in the Congress and in the administration, because of the nature of the work of what we do, is to stay focused on that. But we all thought we have a responsibility as a board to come forward and say, we shouldn't have to pay twice for the paper clips or twice for the chairs if that's not possible, and things small like that, or on the content and the programming, what's working, what's not working, what's changing, the changing landscape. So we've challenged you, and you have stepped up to the challenge, and we as a board appreciate all the challenges that you have. And I know that when you've often been doing a job and you're used to doing it a certain way, and then change comes, that's unsettling. But I'm excited by some of the things that I heard that Governor Wimbush, who's been a stalwart on the committee, who's not here today, but has been shares this enthusiasm of the types of ideas that have come forward from everybody in your various language services and in these networks. And so we are coming down to the last few weeks of this process. The senior management and the staff are getting together to go through what we can do to make things better, because we're in an age where we've got rising platforms. As a board, it seems sort of disproportionate to at least me that, in a budget of $750 million, that $10 or $11 million are on the internet, $80 million is on shortwave, and there are very important places around the world where shortwave is important, but there are also transitions that are happening that we need to be planning for, so we're wisely using the taxpayers' dollars on platforms going forward, and making sure that we continue the quality service, but use those taxpayers' dollars wisely. So as we get to the consolidation part of this process, we'll still be engaging with you, and hopefully over the summer months, the board will come together. Part of it's tinkering with a strategy plan that has budgetary deadlines. So in some examples, some of the things that we heard were easy and quick to implement. I remember hearing in the Africa review that, you know, if we were able to land an FM license in a given country, we could expand our audience very quickly, relatively cheaply, and in the long term. And as some of our other international broadcasting partners in other countries are also making these kinds of changes, the BBC's changes in Africa also represent opportunities. And I think part of the strategy and budget committee work that the BBG staff's been doing, I know Governor Mulhop's been working with the other entities on ways to save money on similar products like research. I mean, there's no reason for the BBC and the BBG and other entities to pay for the same amount of audience research if we can share that. So we've been looking for ways to share cost and allow us to use dollars in other places to get more data to make more informed decisions. And the board's been working across that, and the Budget and Strategy Committee's been factoring that in. So. Therefore, I think in the next few weeks we'll be in a place where we'll have firmer recommendations for the full board to consider. And
you have an RFA statement, is that right?
I do have an RFA statement. The other thing that this opportunity to continue to public service, we're reminded every day the harm's way that many of our journalists are in. And I just, on behalf of the RFA, wanted to bring to the board's attention and everyone here an unfortunate case of a Uyghur journalist who's been a source for RFA and who was recently extradited to China. Urshid in Israel sought asylum in Kazakhstan in 2009 after facing persecution in China in connection with his reporting for the RFA. The case has taken many twists and turns, and in fact has included an offer by Sweden last March, ultimately rejected by the Kazakh government to offer him refuge. The RFA and the RFE joined forces together last year to work with the U.S. government and press international agencies to intervene on his behalf and urge the Kazakh government not to deport him. Despite these efforts, the Kazakh court in April did just that, rejecting the asylum request and ordering his return to China. We continue to monitor the case and have learned of gross irregularities continue. We know that the UNHCR withdrew funding for his lawyer after Erdestin lost his appeal, that the lawyer can't contact him now. We've also learned that the U.S. Embassy knows that he's no longer in his cell. They can't confirm his whereabouts, including whether he was in fact deported or put in custody incommunicado. The case is an intricate knot of free speech issues and foreign policy issues, and the Kazakhstan is in the middle. Kazakhstan is also deeply concerned about its international credentials and garnering international respect. I would hope that the board would urge the UNHCR to reassert its mandate and extend Erdestin refugee status. We'd ask for information about his well-being and whereabouts in cooperation with the U.S. Embassy, the Kazakh authorities, OSCE, and UN and other international agencies. We hope that the Kazakh government would abide by its international commitments and not return Erdestin in jeopardy in China. And we're encouraging alerting all international media about this case. I mean, this is I think it's important for the board to be on the record putting the spotlight on this case because we do need help. This journalist has put his life on the line to do the good work here, and we should do everything we can to support the effort.
Unless there's an objection, that's part of the minutes and will be so noted. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Michael and Diane, who helped put that together. I would direct the directors to the board book and look at the minutes for the meeting that was held in April 2001 at Radio Free Asia, at which Libby Lou, had about 412 different potluck dishes that were prepared for us. So on that calendar, as Dennis did not mention, we are going to meet at RFA on M Street every month and just eat. But I would ask for a motion to adopt those minutes. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. Questions, comments? Yes, sir. And and people have cards. Send them on in. Those who don't want to raise your hand, there's a microphone coming in. Go for it. Yes, sir.
My name is Amir Abbas Fakhravar. I'm a former political prisoner. I spent 5 years of my life in Iran in Evin prison under torture and a lot of fun. And also, I was a journalist and a writer, and I am still. And I'm glad this is the great picture to see the Broadcasting Board of Governors together. Because 5 years ago when we started our investigation on Voice of America PNN, that was really hard to find the BBG, to find the Broadcasting Board of Governors. You know what I'm talking about. And right now, it's the real BBG. Last year, you came to the picture. You did a great job. I want to say thank to Governor Wimbush, and I'm sure he will see us. He did a great job too. Thank you, Governor Dana Perino. And about your comment about PNN, a lot of change is coming. And thank you, Mr. Ramin Asghar, the new head of PNN. And we are hoping to see a lot of change. And we want to support, after 5 years fighting with Voice of America Persian Service, right now we are ready to support the Persian Service to be better. It's moving fast. And I want to ask a question about having watchdog from Broadcasting Board of Governors. Last year, I had several meetings with Governor Wimbush, and he said maybe there was some discussion about having the watchdog from BBG directly about all the services. And right now, definitely the Radio Farda, it will be our next move. Radio Farda, the Persian part of Radio Free Europe, needs to be watched because they are not on the right direction, and they need definitely watchdog. I want to ask, is it possible to have anything like this? Some people that they can prove their loyalty to United States and then to the cause of freedom and democracy to watch all the services that what they are doing. That was my message for Mr. Jeffrey Getman, the head of Radio Free Europe, to pay some attention about Radio Farda. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That's a good comment taken under advisement. I know we've heard quite a bit of that. I don't know if anybody needs to comment on it, but I think it's, we do take all these roles seriously, but we know also that they're incredibly dedicated people doing a good job. Is there any other comment? Gentleman there, and then I've got people have sent questions, and people are sending questions in like crazy. Yes, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Hu Chen Zhang. I'm from VOA China branch. It's been a few months since the BBG announced its proposal to cut VOA broadcast to China, shortwave radio, and the TV. And in the meantime, many people have voiced different opinions and concerns. For instance, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has testified at congressional hearings that she believes that we should continue the traditional media while we develop the new media. And last month, she was interviewed by the Atlantic magazine, and she said, so I testified before Congress a few weeks ago. I said, we are losing the war of ideas because we're not in the arena the way we were in the Cold War. She went on to say, China is starting an English-speaking television network around the world. Russia is, Al Jazeera, and the BBC is cutting back on its many languages services around the world. We're not competing. I just feel like we're missing an opportunity. So my question is,
if I may also add some other of the questions on that very same topic.
Absolutely.
Because we really have a pile of them on both sides. I know it's been an issue. One asked, what did Secretary Clinton say yesterday? The other said there appears to be a campaign to restore the funding for Chinese shortwave, yet the published figures from Intermedia show that the audience of the last few years is close to zero, and these figures are in the noise. If shortwave is indeed restored, what good will that be? Why would such a route be taken as opposed to having cleverer programming on the internet and TV video, such as the Mandarin version of VOA? I think we have a lot of questions on both sides. I would like to stress something that Susan said, and we all have said, and we use it as a mantra, which is that we are platform agnostic. where shortwave works. We want to be on shortwave where radio works. Secretary Clinton yesterday stressed the importance of radio. She also stressed the fact that shortwave is declining drastically in some parts of the world, including in China. I mean, in 2006, I know that 24% owned and operated radios in China, and now it's down to 8%. And as we said, it's a 0.1% listenership on shortwave. We care deeply about getting into China. We care deeply about the message getting into China. We really are looking for the most cost-effective ways. Obviously, Radio Free Asia is using some of those frequencies. I think we're always open-minded to these things, but we're not coming at it because we have some theological reason to be against this, but it's how can we get it in there. We're spending a lot of our internet circumvention dollars on breaking down the firewall in China too, which I think is awesomely important, because whenever I go to China, people are trying to figure out the proxy servers in which they can get information. I don't know if Dick or Michael, anybody wants to add to that?
We had a town hall meeting a few months ago, Walter, which this issue is the only issue raised during the employees' town hall session. And Dan Austin did, I think, a good job of answering as best he could why this proposal was inserted into the fiscal 12 budget, and we're yet to hear from Congress on what they want to do. But you made all the points that we were trying to make.
Well, I know that this is a prime example of the challenges that the board faces. We have the evidence that we do have shows the declining use of shortwave across the world. We're not the only entity that's come to this realization. As Michael Linden has accurately pointed out, if you built a BBG today, you'd build a TV platform. If you had the dollars to do it, you'd be everything on television, because that's where the future audiences are going to be, almost regardless of country. Either it's going to come through their mobile apps or wherever it is. And so we spent about $14.5 million on both of our networks on China alone. That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. It's one of the larger amounts of sums by country comparison. So we need to do more with less approach. It's a hard call to make. I don't think you would say that you'd want to continue trying to just reach 0.1% of an audience when you know there's 235 million people in China on the internet today. I'm sorry? 400 million. And the coverage on the internet it's not just it's in the urban areas and the rural areas. I mean, the access to the internet is unbelievable. So we're trying to balance these things in a difficult budget environment and shape a direction. So these are all factors, and clearly we don't have all the information. We look forward to any more information that people can bring to help better inform us about decisions about the 12 budget and the future as well.
Thank you. We have a question by email. I'd like to go to that. When does the board expect to finish a strategic review? And we'll look at the biggest question of all: is our country really best served by having its international broadcasting effort divided into 6 entities? I'll just give an overview answer and then let some others. The 6 entities or various entities evolved historically. There are reasons and different mandates for each one, but step by step, we are feeling our way to how we create one organization with one great mission and one group of shared services, but multiple brand names and services where that works. Let me say, as a historian, that this is the most difficult question of all, is what the Continental Congress wrestled with, whatever. It's how much you centralize, how much you devolve authority to entities. Having with Michael Linton and Steve Korn worked at AOL Time Warner, I know corporations can't figure out how much do you centralize, how much do you dissolve. Steve Reddish keeps nodding on this one, to the entities. But we are not, once again, doing this for strange ideological reasons. We are trying to see how we could get to one organization where we merge the IBB and BBG staff, streamline as much as possible, create the right brand names, but also allow some of the entrepreneurship that does come from having some separate entities. I don't know who wants to add to that. Dick, you haven't spoken yet.
You might want to discuss your thoughts about the global newsroom that might
Well, that's another thing. I mean, we're feeling our way, and Jeff is working on this quite a bit, which is we have so much great reporting, and it resides in the various entities. We want to create a global newsroom and global news service that almost competes with the wire services and the agencies and everything else, that says any of our stories in any of the languages in which they've been reported, or available to any of our entities, and maybe to any entity around the world, whether it's a blogger in Uzbekistan or somebody with a Twitter feed in Cambodia or somebody with a radio station in Pakistan. You can get our reporting in the original language of that reporting or in English as part of a news service. And I think that allows the entrepreneurship that each of our great reporters at the entities do, but somehow tries to centralize it. But, and you may want to report on how, because there's another question that's related to this, how the IBB-BBG staff merger is happening. And really, that's being done because we feel we should streamline at management level before we ask journalists to streamline. How's that going?
Well, it's going pretty well, Walter. We've had a group of senior staff people meeting. We've had 4 meetings thus far. We've scheduled another one for next week. We've sent a proposed table of organization and workflow table to the Congress, and we're waiting for their approval on it. But this is primarily an administrative move that's going to make to create some efficiencies in the way we do the business of the agency here. And I think that we're getting good cooperation from everyone. We've been talking to the entity heads about their participation in trying to consolidate certain things and create efficiencies so that we can do a better job of managing the outreach of the agency, the communications of the agencies, all things of that sort.
Mm-hmm. Question?
Michael has,
yeah.
Mike,
Oh, sorry, Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, and to that end, Diane Zelny now has the job of consolidating the communications and the external affairs aspect of it, and she's going to go through and audit through all the networks about ways that we can streamline some efficiencies there and save some dollars by all pulling together instead of having, I mean, it doesn't make sense to us on this level to have, 5 press offices and 5 congressional affairs offices in each of the different places that we think we have a responsibility that under U.S. international broadcasting that we speak with one voice to the outside media, to the Congress, to the administration, and to our various audiences in Washington. And that's part of our effort. We recognized that as a challenge when we first got to the board, and we moved with lightning government speed 9 months later to hire someone, and deal with those practical realities. And those are the kinds of things that those of us in the private sector would solve this in a day, and you just kind of have to do what the government does. So,
very eager questioner there who's already standing up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Isaacs. Andre Deneshner with the Voice of America News Division. I want to ask you about a meeting between several BBG board members and CENTCOM, Central Command, earlier this year. And at that meeting, it was revealed that CENTCOM and the BBG have strong mutual interests. And there was also the practicality was discussed of setting up a working group established, quote, to advance concrete collaboration going forward. So my question to you is what are the mutual interests between the BBG and CENTCOM? What is this collaborative effort that you envisage? And finally, I would like to ask each board member to define, in their words, what they see the notion of the firewall.
Right.
Thank you.
By the way, the firewall is the #1 mandate of this board, and I'm not quite sure exactly what, I'm going to go to Bruce, who was there, but trust us, we all understand that that's our priority, that credible journalism, and whenever there's a firewall violation comes to us. Yes?
I just want to say that the statements, I got it from your own website.
Right, no, I'm saying I was not at that visit, so I'm going to ask Bruce if you don't mind, because I'm not an expert. Michael was there.
So one of the things as part of this strategic review is I as a taxpayer care about this, is why would one branch of the government pay to replicate and put 2 towers right next to each other when they could be shared? But we're mindful of our primary role as on the firewall side, but where technology allows us to save money by expanding these communications platforms, we should figure out a way to do that. I mean, there's I worked in the Congress for 25 years. It's not an efficient place. But their intentions are, we have to follow their intentions because those are the laws. But we also have a responsibility to be practical about this. And if there's towers in Afghanistan that the military is paying for, that are underutilized, that we could utilize without interrupting our firewall responsibilities, we have a responsibility to look at that to save taxpayers' money across the board, regardless of
And I'll give you
our
another
agency.
example of where it came up was when the Defense Department had a plane over Libya, and all the things that were happening in Libya, we wanted to get in. We had a whole board conversation because the Defense Department was going to give us, and did give us, the ability to beam in, but they wanted the right to put in certain public service announcements, they call that. We felt that that was a firewall problem, and we spent a lot of time working out that we would, make sure clearly labeled, we would see them, et cetera. And so that was quite a bit of discussion just to get on an airplane beaming down from Libya. Bruce, did you want to add to that?
No, I think that's good. It's also the case that we share research. And we have a common interest in looking at markets around the world and understanding what's happening. There's a great interest in Central Asia on the part of the people at Central Command. We have an ability to learn from them in terms of their assessment of what's happening on the ground there as we look at our own broadcast strategy. So that was part of the conversation.
There's a question on one of the cards. How does the board intend to allocate the $10 million worth of Internet Freedom Funds diverted from the State Department? The card said, we did have a nice set of meetings at the State Department that were no longer tug-of-warring over such funds. Is Ken here?
Yes, he is.
Oh, second row. Ken Berman might want to answer some of that, because I think we have one of the great firewall circumvention teams led by Ken.
Thank you. It's a great question. And what we intend to do is work on two fronts. One is take advantage of these existing technologies that have proved so successful in the past, that have allowed us to break through, for the most part, through China and through Iran and through various, in fact, about 25 other countries. And so that's taking advantage of the existing technologies, which right now we've been limited to by bandwidth and cost questions. This $10 million will allow us to free up some of that. On the other hand, we want to embark in some new areas. There's been a lot of talk about mobile. Mobile is great. Mobile's the future. The number of handheld devices is exceeding the number of desktop and laptop units. It is the answer, but however, right now we feel there's certain security vulnerabilities in closed societies that attempt to use internet circumvention. So part of the funding is going to be used for researching and understanding and then deploying applications and utilization of mobile platforms, specifically smartphones, 3G and 4G, to allow us to continue the circumvention program through mobile outreach.
And I want to say that Ken Berman has been meeting with Michael Posner, the head of the Democracy, Rights, and Labor Division at State, where there was that tug of war. And I think in some ways that's now, we're making lemonade out of that we're working very closely without breaching a firewall, at least understanding that we're breaching the Chinese firewall, not our own internal firewall. Yes, is that with a hand there? Sure, waving frantically. I guess proving that the more frantically you wave, the more likely you're to be noticed.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a Pei from Voice of America, China branch. I have basically my question is: yes, we hear so many people mentioning about China, or what a bright picture of China is. We have 400 million. Internet users. We have at least 300 or 400 million cell phone users, so on and so forth. So we reach them. But my question is, are we dreaming, or are we really looking at the fact? Yeah, let's have some fact check. In the last week, there was turmoil in Inner Mongolia. And in order to write the story, I checked the Inner Mongolia news on the Chinese internet. And Sina.com, the most popular portal in China. The first news item about Inner Mongolia weather. The second, weather. The third, weather. The fourth, weather. Everything is about the weather. So, how successful they were in control the information on the internet, we can see. And also, some personal anecdote. They are not only very successful or very effective in the in the information flow control. Also, they can do it very sophisticated. For instance, in the past 2 weeks, when I sent some email messages to my friends in China, all my messages containing some sensitive words were blocked. Yeah. So we always say, oh, we are the most advanced in the internet circumvention. Yes, we are very advanced, but the fact is, we are not so advanced. We simply do not put in as many resources as China do. China, they really are serious in devoting resources.
I think we've seen that with the Google attack from China in the past few days, and I know Libby works on it quite in Radio Free Asia. I think it's a great comment, and I don't know that I think it's taken under advisement. Is there another question? Yes, sir.
I'm Jianli Dong from the Mandarin service, and I like what Michael said just now. We need to save taxpayers' money and share some information. And actually, maybe we can share some information with you as well, because the VOA's acknowledging percent is 12% in China, and the CNN and the BBC only 3% in China. That's a figure. Mm-hmm. And another figure is the Chinese radio production industry. They have a yearly annual report. Please look at that. And there have, since 2008, their short wave radio production has been increased dramatically. And another thing is, after the 2008, the earthquake happened, and the Sony company donated to China, not money, but 30,000 digital shortwave radio to that disaster area. I think in US, the disaster area sometimes lost their internet, telephone, but they can rely on radio, even ham radio. That's what I may say.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comment. I have a card here that sort of ties into some of it, which is the number of cell phones in the world is roughly 6 billion. Growth in the Africa market is exponential. What is the board doing to ensure that VOA is technologically prepared to deliver all its content on these ubiquitous cell phone devices? Now, Susan, do you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, a lot of my comments were directed toward that, but we plan to really aggressively explore mobile technology and do everything possible to get your stories out, your content out. And it is a priority for the board. Not to preclude, of course, I want to reinforce not to preclude radio and TV. We remain platform agnostic, but we do recognize that mobile, the growth of it cannot be ignored. We need to be not only in that game, but in front of it to every extent possible. So we're all working as hard as we can on that.
One more, I guess we have one last question there, and we really appreciate this. We'll do this again in the, in the fall or something, and try to do more informal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm also from China branch. My name is Xiao Yan. I guess that's not a surprise to you. It seems to me the BBG, all the members, you care a lot about numbers. So I want to talk about one number, 45. That's how many people who are going to be laid off on October 1st. Even my colleagues advised me not to raise the question. They said, you're not going to get any sympathy. I said, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, sympathy is not going to take us anywhere, but I'm trying to raise a question. I hope you agree with me. People should be your best asset. We understand that the time is tough. Every government agency is facing budget cut, but wouldn't you agree with me, firing people, laying off people should be the last resort? We can find other ways to save money if the budget is the issue. I don't know whether that's really the issue. So we can find some other ways to save money. Like we're sitting here in this room, it's freezing cold. We can just turn up or turn down, I don't know, the air conditioning.
Yeah.
That probably will save us a lot of money. And the escalator on the first floor to the second floor, I remember it started from 2005. And we're still working on it. I don't know how much money we spend.
Well,
no, I know you have lots of experts working on that. I'm just
you're raising
on top of my head. I'm just thinking we can find some other ways to save money instead of laying off these very loyal, talented, hard-working VOA journalists.
Yeah, you raise a very good point. And whether it was at CNN or any other place, you really try to struggle to do two things: to keep the budget up, and I think we have an extraordinary team on this board, especially the three of you all who are on the outreach committee to Capitol Hill, that has, in a very difficult time, really protected the budget because of the great journalism and the great work and the great mission here. That people on Capitol Hill who are looking to cut everything, somehow they understand the importance of what you in this room do. Another way to make sure we keep our budget is to show we're really good at allocating those resources efficiently. That when the time comes, we're not protecting a particular type of platform like shortwave in a certain place at the expense of having a more efficient way of getting in. But it's not because we want to lay off journalists. Thirdly, when it comes to cutting costs, we have really tried, which is what this, the mergers of the staffs, the streamlining, the cutting of our travel, whatever it may be, to say number one priority is journalists in the field, and we should try to cut elsewhere in the budget where possible. But in the end, there are going to be hard choices made. There's going to be overlaps in language services. There's going to be changes in platforms that happen. We really have to respond to them and keep our credibility on Capitol Hill, keep our credibility with the American people. And trust me, there is nothing more painful than to say we have to make some cuts in order to move forward. I just want you to know that we are trying hard not to do it, based on some strange ideologies or wacky notions, but to do it as well as we can and protect our budget very well, because we understand this mission in this building and with the 35,000 people around the world is absolutely critical. Anybody want to add to that, Mr. Ash? Yeah, you can talk.
I was just going to say, we struggle with these issues, and it's not easy. And in one of my prior incarnations, I used to be a mayor, and this reminded me of public forum at City Council every 2 weeks, which I say in a complimentary way because I appreciate you some ways venting, some ways saying, some ways outlining your thoughts, and we listen. You all work here day in and day out. If you have suggestions on cost saving, whether it's dealing with air conditioning or whatever, I'm not saying we'll always agree with it or management would. But I think there is a mechanism by, Jeff Trimble's nodding yes, by which you can send in your suggestions, even if it's only a $300 savings or $5,000 savings. We welcome it. And I think this is good to have these kind of meetings. But the toughest decision I think any board can ever make is one which we know results in someone losing their job. Right. That is not fun. And I think people struggle with that. I know I do personally. And yet decisions have to be made. This is a $730 million budget. That's a huge item. But I would be the first to acknowledge at the city of Knoxville, ours was just a baby $180 million. But you can find some areas where cuts could be made without sacrificing services out of $730 million. Is that going to be enough to solve every problem and reallocate to every new technology that comes along? Absolutely not. But at the same time, we have to be conscious of ways we can save. The Congress in both parties is demanding it, and it's just what we're going to have to do. But we do, if you leave with no other impression is, I hope you realize the 9 of us actually do take this seriously. We do struggle. We're not operating in a vacuum. We argue among ourselves as to what's the best way to move forward. But I think a meeting like today is helpful. I appreciate you coming. For those of you who didn't get your every question answered or written in, send it in by email to Jeff Trimble or Dick Lobo or whoever. They'll share it with us. And if you have specific items of where savings can be made, be it small or be it large, don't not send it because you think someone will snicker at you. Send it anyway, and it'll be evaluated. We, as a board, don't do it. The management will do it, and see if it makes sense. And if it does, darn it, we need to do it.
Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you, members of the board. We really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
I hope that added.
No, it did. It actually.